One of the fundamental parts of the dragon cult was its priesthood. Its highest ranking members ruled in the name of their Dovahzul, dragon gods, as equals to the kings, in Torhal Bjorik's words. Those supporters knew, even in the twilight of their influence, that Alduin and the rest of his kind would one day return, and with them, so would their loyal servants be restored to their prime. Therefore, in order to achieve lichdom, a complex and powerful state of undeath, the dragon priests of old rely on the unshakable worship of their formerly mortal, now Draugr subjects. This is why coming across Dovahzul, who is not laid to rest in an intricately built and well-maintained temple surrounded by his blue-eyed servants, is rather bewildering. Arctul Darlos Krosis, Deito Benix od Archetsego last Veza, Geblan Nalai. Drem Yol Lok, Zur is Valbo, and welcome to my study in my home leaf rest in Riverwood, Skyrim. Here today we will focus on the enigmatic dragon priest Krosis and his curious location. But before that, I wish to deeply thank one of the first adventurers to have joined our community, whose steadfast support of my work continues to endlessly humble me and fill me with joy and gratitude. Papsai Guest 31. It is you who inspired the idea for this research nearly a year ago now, and the time has finally come for it to be given the respect and attention it deserves. Unslat kogan fachin skilan akzak, di wutak bachlan fadon. I hope I do the topic justice today and that you and the rest of you, di braan bovitaan, my fellow adventurers, enjoy. Now let us return to our subject of discussion. We shall firstly go over what little is known of Krosis as well as his burial place, Sheerpoint, and then we will offer theories behind his location as well as how he is in the same state as his brethren without the worship of loyal Draugr. Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pieces of parchment where I have documented my research. Mukin vot Krosis okmar. Compared to his fellow priests, he almost seems misplaced in his lopsided sarcophagus half buried in snow near a word wall that was built sometime after his quote-unquote death. More on that shortly. While Volsung's resting place is a hilltop as well, it is a part of the rather large temple of Volskig, with a door leading to it, making it easy for Draugr to access their priest. Not to mention, his sarcophagus is perfectly centered on the crest and in front of the Wall of Power, which was likely erected before the fall of the dragon cult, given all three inscriptions that can spawn there depending on which Rotmulage, words of power of the whirlwind sprint shout, we already know. I speak of these characteristics of the stone cairns in my investigation dedicated to them. Taking all of this into consideration, Volsung's situation cannot be compared to that of Krosis. And speaking of him, his Dovahzul title translates to sorrow in Tamrielic, and this word is also how Dove express regret and offer apologies.
Once Lord Krosis, innumerable pardons, I digress.
He achieved a high rank in the dragon cult and is one of the priests whose masks have busts in the Bromunar sanctuary. Like the rest of the priests, he is magically powerful. His face wear is a light piece of armor made of bronze, and its enchantment is orientated towards enhancing one's skills in alchemy, archery, and lockpicking. Somehow, Krosis became a leech like the rest of his fellow priests, in spite of not having neither a temple dedicated to him, nor Draugr worshippers to transfer their life force to him. Daglo spa mumindog do Krosis. Now on to the scarce information on Sheerpoint available to us. It is also known as Sheerpoint Mountain, and it is located in the Pale, where the borders of the Set Holt, Whiterun, and East March cross together. Dwemer ruins adorn its northern side, with the most prominent being the deep elven city of Ralbathar. A large Ethereum deposit was once located beneath Sheerpoint, one that the Dwemer tenaciously extracted, with the previously mentioned Dwemeri settlement having been the main source of this mysterious blue crystal. During the First Era, a North tongue named Modir the Far raised the word what we find there in the memory of his brother, Oscar, who was not half as gifted in the voice as Modir and the rest of his clan was. We shall return to both of these facts at a later time. Fanu darlos pa mu visiv now Krosis argvezad. Now we shall turn our attention to the theories available for us to explore. Let us begin. Mora now minda. I believe it is only fair to begin with Papsai Guest 31's personal speculation on Krosis that I shall expand on now, and namely, Krosis is buried at Sheerpoint because he was a renegade to the cult, therefore, Vodun Dovahzul. The Wuth Fadong focuses on his name to back up the theory, which is very different to that of his fellow priests, and I agree that it is indeed an odd one. Other high-ranking members have titles that would translate to revenge in the case of Nakrin, Allegiance Guide or Loyal Guide as the Smiraks, Glorious, which is Mordecai's Tamrielic title, etc. All monikers that inspire respect and fear and exude Suliek, power. Even Azidal, the bitter destroyer whose tragic story of coming back to the ruins of Sarthal and finding out his wife and child perished during the Night of Tears, which would make a title such as Sorrow suitable for him, instead opts for a name that pays respect to the calamity while still holding might and authority. At first sight, none are in line with Krosis' moniker, although we will later offer an interpretation of it that would make it not much different from theirs, but I digress. It is very possible that his actual title was stripped away and replaced with the one we know after he disgraced it and the cult he served. And as mentioned before, the lack of a temple and Draugr worshippers dedicated to him can also be explained by this assumption. In this case, Krosis can be viewed as his brethren expressing regret over his treachery or failure, for he may not have betrayed Faal Dovahzul, but disappointed its members and overlords one too many times. Or it could have a more negative connotation. Darok lost Salag, a poor excuse for a priest. The first possible weakness to this theory is, if Krosis was disgraced and shunned, then why is he buried with his mask, and why does said mask have its own pedestal in the Bromionar sanctuary, making it crucial to access Konarik? The answer can be rather simple. In spite of having betrayed and or failed Ogze Mahe Ardovrache, similarly to the rest of the priesthood, his mask was crafted specifically for him, therefore it belongs with him even if he is no longer a part of the cult. And or it represents only negative aught, and nobody would wish to claim it. Plus, if it is an epitome of treachery and disappointment, it can be considered an additional punishment to let Krosis keep it or bury him with it. As for why it still has its place in the sanctuary, perhaps he turned against the cult or failed them for the last time at the very end of Dragon's rule, shortly before or after Alduin was sent forward in time. The rest of the priests would have been too preoccupied with themselves and their followers to find a replacement for Krosis and his mask in the sanctuary. The remaining members of the cult were scattered after all. The fact that Konarik is still on its own unique, dragon-headed pedestal when we travel either back in time or to a place beyond time thanks to the wooden mask on which I have a research, tells us none of Val Sonake even bothered with the golden faceware during these turbulent times, or the more likely explanation is that they could not gather together to access it due to the known circumstances. The second weakness is the following. Sheerpoint becomes a dragon lair during the Fourth Era, and the Dova that occupies it coexists peacefully with Pradan Sonar. If Krosis was a traitor to the cult, one would expect that the dragon would end his undead existence immediately upon sensing his presence in his sarcophagus, before he would even awaken. However, it is worth to note that the dragon that makes Sheerpoint his home may have been unaware of Krosis' betrayal, given the chaos of the Dragon War. Therefore, all he sees is one of his kind's highest-ranking worshippers. Left without much of a choice, the priest does not disclose that he is a renegade, and the two do not engage in any sort of conflict. It is also possible he was given a second chance, Newan roklos tarodis ufan funtas. After all, Alduin offers his younger brother to return to his side after he almost single-handedly led to the fall of his empire as we and Nax battle him at the Monaven.
Av Uvdir, join me or perish with your mortal friends.
Wan Faljun Sedovalos Fulzofan, although Parthurnax is his brother and a fellow dragon, so the sentimentality here would be much stronger than that towards a priest. What stops the rest of dragonkind from willing to give those who were once loyal to them but failed them a second chance? They do need all the numbers they can get if Fahlain Nak, the World Eater, is to rebuild his kingdom from the ground up. Krosis then accepts and the rest is history. Furthermore, gameplay does not equal lore, and that in itself is a strong enough argument to contradict the weakness. This very argument can also be utilized to answer the question why Krosis is a lich, in spite of not having been worshipped and fed life forces of Draugr. Another possible explanation of this could be the magical energies the Ethereum located beneath Shearpoint emitted, managing to maintain his lichdom. The Dragon War broke out long before the Dwemer discovered Ethereum, therefore the deposits remained untouched at the time Krosis was buried. This will come up again several times during our investigation. All things considered, I believe this is an extremely plausible speculation. I really hope my expansion on it did it justice, Papsai Guest 31, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the theories. Koganainzu. The next speculation I have seen floating about, which does somewhat tie into the one we just discussed, is that Krosis was Parthurnax's personal priest. Braan bovitaan was Kilan Dardrendir point out that Krosis' burial place, Shearpoint, is directly beneath the throat of the world's highest summit. Furthermore, Parthurnax has a strong connection to Kine, and there is no reason not to believe he already had it before the Dragon War broke out, given Sister Hawk is technically the chief deity of the Atmoran or Nordic pantheon, in spite of Dove's influence. And it is worth to note that her name in Dovahzul, Khan, is also a word of power, implying dragons do respect and honor her in their own way. Due to this, those who subscribe to this theory claim Krosis' name refers to her sorrow due to her husband's, Shor's, death. This is all the evidence I have seen in support of the speculation, and the only odd I could add is that it would make sense Krosis would not have a temple dedicated to him, considering his Dovra los Tarodis wafal Dovahzul, be it because he willingly gave up his power when the cult became tyrannical and aided Nax in his quest, or due to, similarly to the first speculation, being disgraced since Parthurnax betrayed his kind and their allies. While this theory is fascinating, it does have its loose ends. To begin, Nax only started residing at the Monaven permanently after Alduin was sent forward in time in order to be there when he emerged from Faltida Hran, the time wound which renders the claim that Krosis was buried at Shearpoint due to his Dovra's closeness to it null. Secondly, nothing Nax or even the Greybeards say remotely alludes to Krosis having been the former's priest. I believe this would have been too important of information not to share, especially considering we would inevitably face the bronze-masked lich on our travels. Parthurnax has quite a lot of dialogue and depth as a character, therefore it would have made sense for him to tell us or even comment on Krosis if we have the armor in our inventory and especially if we are wearing the mask. Another weakness to this speculation is the fact that, given Dove's incredible arcane power, Nax would have sensed Krosis' presence. If the priest remained loyal to him, he could have easily swooped down to Shearpoint to pick him up, perhaps even restore his appearance if he has at least a little of his elder brother's abilities, or Quanarok, vanquish him if Krosis had maintained his support for the cult, perhaps even gift us his mask at a certain point. Although this can be refuted by what I spoke of moments ago, that he was awaiting Alduin's emergence from the time wound. He had no idea when the firstborn would reappear, and it is very possible he did not deem getting Krosis or dealing with him once and for all to be important enough for him to break his vigilance, especially since Alduin could have arrived at any given second. Still, I think Parthurnax is too important of a character for something so crucial to his story, such as a personal priest, to remain completely left out. Regardless, this theory is as interesting as the rest. Now, on to the next shorter speculation, a personal of mine. Krosis was simply buried at sheer point to be close to his personal Dovra, who is not Nax in this case. While there are no dragon mounts near the location, Sheerpoint does become Andova Prav during the Fourth Era, and as mentioned before, the Dova who makes it his home coexists with the bronze-masked Lich peacefully. If this very same dragon was buried by cultists nearby, with his mount having been covered by snow over time, and he was Krosis' personal Dovra, then it would make sense for the priest to have desired to be laid to rest close to him instead of a temple far away. There is actually a small piece of evidence of this, which lies in the sadly no longer playable card game The Elder Scrolls Legends, in the face of the beautiful artwork of a card titled Sheerpoint Dragon. This is the one and only example of a lesser unnamed Dova being associated with a specific dragon layer in the entirety of Legends, if we consider the Skyborn dragon not to be related to Skyborn Altar, but even if he is, there is no dragon priest buried in the latter. I digress. As evidenced by Thurvokun and Zan, Dovahke Arknist Sonakke share a powerful connection, which supports our current speculation. Many also consider Nakrin to be Alduin's personal priest, given he is the one charged with guarding the portal to Sovngarde, which is, in Odahvink's words,
a privilege he jealously guards.
And his mask is as black as a starless sky, very much like the World Eater's scales. Not to mention that Skuldafn is a temple built in Alduin's name specifically, the most sacred of dragon shrines, and Nakrin's resting place. If we assume Nakrin is indeed Alduin's priest, then both of their actions are an incredible display of a strong bond and of trust on the firstborn's side, which does not come easy to a Dova. As for Krosis' odd name, it could simply be related to his past, similarly to Azidal's, or perhaps it was even changed to pay respects to his Dovra, in case he perished before the priest. Or, as I said previously, let us interpret it completely differently. All who dare defy the priest only feel sorrow and despair in his presence, for his punishments would be swift and merciless. When it comes to how Krosis achieved lichdom without having Draugr maintaining his burial place or a temple, here we return to Ethereum and its powerful magical properties. Just as stated previously, the deposits of this blue crystal beneath Sheerpoint could have been feeding the priest with enough mana to substitute for the life force Draugr's servants would gift him. Or, considering our current theory of him having been entombed close to his dragon god, perhaps Ogdovrahi Suliakar Lu Gron Suliakanok. Or, after the dragon was resurrected and made the lair his home, he brought Krosis back as a leech. While this speculation relies on quite a bit of imagination, I do believe it is as likely as the previously discussed ones. Regardless, there is nothing more to add to it. Let us turn our attention to the next one, which is even shorter. The priest was a part of the clan that raised the stone cairn there in the name of Oscar the Fool. Here is what its inscription's translation is. Modiar the Far raised this stone in his brother's memory. Oscar the Fool, whose voice was weak and not the mighty shout of his clan. We already covered Modir having been a Tung, who allegedly became a greybeard according to non-canon sources, that lived during the First Era, and that, as further evidenced by the Wall of Power's writing, he and his untalented brother came from a clan known for their prowess in the voice. It is plausible to theorize that this affinity for shouting was passed down to them by Krosis himself, and in spite of his loyalties to the cult, they thought to honor him as they would have any other of their fallen kin, and entombed him at Sheerpoint for one reason or another. Given they were enemies to the cult at the time, they sought to bury him away from any Draugr-infested temples so that he would not awaken and wreak havoc again. Later, the word wall in Oskar's memory was erected close to Krosis' coffin. Two members of the family who each disappointed their bloodline in some way, but were still loved and respected enough to have been shown honor in line with Nordic tradition. Or Krosis chose his family over the cult in the end with the same result, excluding having let them down in some way. And in case he remained loyal to Dove and his fellow priests, the previous theory can be combined with this one. He was both buried at Sheerpoint to be close to his Dovra, and the word wall dedicated to Oskar was raised next to his sarcophagus because he was a part of his and Modier's clan. A believable, if not as dramatic, explanation. And the final short theory, which is related to suggestions I made previously. Krosis wanted to be buried at Sheerpoint specifically due to the Ethereum deposits beneath it. Not much is known of the blue crystal, aside from the fact that it has immensely powerful magical properties, and that it was considered so valuable by the Dwemer that they started a war over it that lasted for decades and ultimately weakened them so much that they fell to the High King's armies. It is important to note that the Deep Elves first discovered it in year 221 of the First Era, quite some time after the Dragon War. Therefore, Falbi Ostra lost Vohalvutan Melad Dovahzul. In my investigation on why Volthuriol is in Blackreach, I theorized that the crystal's name, Ethereum, could possibly allude to its origins being in the Aedric realm of Aetherius, which would explain its incredible power and mystery. Argdovachelos Vozalase Raren Nali. It makes sense that they would be able to utilize it and its capabilities to the fullest, as well as train at least some among their highest-ranking priests in how to do so themselves. Krosis could have wished to be buried specifically at Sheerpoint upon his temporary death, due to knowing that the energies emitted by the Ethereum beneath the mountain would maintain him better than any Draugr life force could. Perhaps he even planned to return as a fully fleshed-out ancient Nord, as opposed to a leech, provided Ethereum could have preserved him so well. But then the dwarves started mining and mining, ridding Krosis of this opportunity, and the Ethereum's energies remained enough to only bring him back as the rest of his brethren, as a leech. This theory relies mainly on imagination, but what little we know of this blue crystal does make it possible to me. A question one could ask is, if Dove were aware of the presence of Ethereum in many underground caverns in Kaizal, Skyrim, then why did they not extract it as the Dwemer later did? A possible answer I can give is that they could utilize its abilities without needing the physical crystal before them, or even necessarily near. On Zuk Dovachelos Sinneast Lu. There is really nothing more to add to this speculation and to the investigation as a whole, which means our research has come to an end. Disgraced, buried at Sheerpoint due to having been Pagthurnax's personal priest, to be close to his Dovra, Nax or not, or to be near the Monaven where members of his clan, that of Modier and Oskar, likely trained to become masters of the Thu'um with varying degrees of success, or laid to rest there due to the Ethereum deposits beneath the snow and stones. Krosis remains the only dragon priest not found in an ancient Nordic and Draugr-infested temple. Whichever of these theories, if any at all, are closest to the truth is ultimately left to our personal interpretation and imagination. And this brings me to the question, what speculation resonated with you the most? Or perhaps you have your own to share. If you do, please do not hesitate to tell me. I always adore exchanging thoughts and knowledge with you, Difadonne. Hakun Slat Kogan, thank you all for your support, as always. I look forward to being in your presence again, but until then, Lok Thu'um. Kos fervit, kosil darin, ak maradal, Difadonne.